Hello, welcome to Monday's Look North. Tonight, jailed for 5 years, the businessman who carried out sex assaults on 2 teenage girls more than a decade ago. No hiding place. Shoplifters are warned that CCTV cameras are monitoring every inch of Middlesbrough's shopping centres. A special award for the parents of Bradley Lowry, the 6-year-old football fan who died of cancer in July. And X Factor star Joe McElderry goes back to his old school for a Christmas carol concert.
I'm afraid festive cheer is a bit thin on the ground when it comes to the region's football teams, apart from Sunderland, where Christmas has come early with the first home win in almost a year.
He was a successful businessman who was cleared of sexually assaulting a teenager 8 years ago. But today, that same man was back in court and was jailed for attacks on 2 other young victims. 46-year-old James Swan, who ran a photography business in Weardale, carried out the assaults on the 2 teenagers more than a decade ago. This afternoon at Teesside Crown Court, Swan was jailed for 5 years. Stuart Wincup joins us live from court tonight. Stuart.
Well, the court heard Swan had lost everything. He was well known, but was now publicly named and shamed. He'd lost his business and had been excluded from the family home. But even after all that, the judge said he still didn't believe Swan truly understood the harm he had caused his young victims. James Swan had, the judge said, damaged the lives of his young victims. The women both came forward after he'd been cleared of sexually assaulting another teenager years earlier. When detectives seized his computer and examined the contents of his hard drive, they found he'd sent thousands of sexually explicit messages to a 13-year-old girl. He also moved her clothing as he performed massages on her. The court heard Swan attacked one of his victims at his home, pinning her against the wall, taking her clothes off and touching her. The teenager said she thought she was going to be raped. She said she was shouting for him to stop, but he ignored her pleas and carried on. Prosecutor Richard Bennett said the attack only stopped because while it was happening, Swan's wife called and left a message on the answer machine to say she was on her way home. Swan had showered the girls with affection and kindness as he groomed them. In victim impact statements, one of the women told the court she was young and vulnerable at the time.
I was in a very bad place. I was bullied, called ugly, and he was always kind to me. I felt so pleased to have someone want me. I now worry about being judged, and I worried that this was my fault for letting it happen.
Sentencing Swan to 5 years in prison, the judge said his actions had a profound effect on his victims, yet he still tried to downplay the seriousness of what he had done.
A man who killed a teenager broke down in tears after pleading guilty to manslaughter. 17-year-old Sonny Stevenson died after he'd been riding his motorbike in Gisborough last August. This morning, Matthew Buckworth, who's 34 and from Charlton's Garth in the town, cried throughout a brief appearance at Teesside Crown Court. He also admitted a charge of actual bodily harm against another victim. He'd be sentenced next month. An 84-year-old man fought off a burglar with a frying pan and then chased him from his home. The attacker entered through the back of the bungalow in Lobley Hill in Gateshead last night and threatened Albert Scott with a knife. The victim suffered injuries to his hand after being hit with a claw hammer. Police say extra patrols are being carried out in the area. Now, children from deprived parts of Scarborough have some of the worst educational achievement rates in the country. By the age of 11, only 1 in 5 youngsters on free school meals is reaching expected standards in reading, writing and maths. A year ago, the town became one of the first so-called opportunity areas with extra money and support from the government. Gemma Dillon reports.
This is just one of many classes at Overdale Primary aimed at improving the language skills of some children. The classes are tailored to improve attainment. But it's not just the kids in the classroom, it's the parents as well. Gemma and Leanne have attended a number of classes to help them help their children.
And when I come in that day for school, I said, well, where's your reading record? And he said, Oh, well, it's upstairs in my bedroom, I haven't brought it. And I was like, well, you need it, you know, you need it. So then next day, obviously, I've made sure he's brought it into school and he's doing well with it now. And then he's reading more every day because I'm on top of it.
I can now help my older children with the maths homework. When they were bringing it home previously, it was all a big jumble for me, like a foreign language, but now I'm finally understanding it.
The stats show of those eligible for free school meals in Scarborough, only 20% achieve the expected level in reading, writing and maths by the time they're 11. And 85% are not in education, employment or training by the time they're 16. Head teacher Vicky Logan's been running Overdale Primary School for 7 years and says the extra funding has enabled her to improve attainment levels in her school.
Speech and language is key to all learning. Without that foundation of learning, children are so inhibited in their learning. We couldn't fund this from our school budgets. It would be impossible. But the Scarborough Pledge and now the Scarborough Opportunities has made that a real possibility. And we are eternally grateful for that.
As preparations for Christmas are underway in the school, staff here hope they're preparing their pupils for the future. Gemma Dillon, BBC Look North, Scarborough.
Good jumpers. Now, shoplifters in Middlesbrough have been warned that every inch of the town's shopping centres are now covered by CCTV. The Hill Street Centre has installed 42 cameras that can track individuals throughout the mall, complementing systems already in place in 3 other shopping centres. Our business correspondent Ian Reeve reports.
It's a crime that hammers the retail sector particularly hard at Christmas. Shoplifting in the 6-week period from the middle of November to the end of December sees shops in the UK incur losses of about £500 million. In Middlesbrough, they're investing to try and chip away at that figure.
From up here we can operate, zoom in on anyone we wish to follow, and we can follow them all throughout the centre.
This shopping centre has invested in 42 high-definition cameras that can track people along every step of the mall and beyond.
We have a radio system which we can contact any part of the town. Majority of shops have a radio, so if there's someone we track through our centre, we can then pass it on to another shop or another part of the town. They can then follow that person around the town so we don't lose sight of them, especially if they've just committed a crime in the centre. They don't just go off site as soon as they leave, they'll be followed around the town.
The new cameras complement sophisticated systems in place in the town's 3 other shopping centres. The claim now is that every inch of Middlesbrough's retail space is covered by CCTV, something that retailers hope will lead to a fall in the Christmas shoplifting spike.
It's a busy time for obviously all the shops and therefore for the security staff both in the stores and on the malls. Crime unfortunately is slightly on the increase, so therefore we need to invest in better technology to try and deter people from doing things they shouldn't be doing. We've seen a steady increase from about November time up to now, and we're now starting to hit sort of double-digit increases really. So in the region of 10% increase, I guess.
This morning, the cameras picked out former Middlesbrough footballer Bernie Slaven selling his autobiography and proving a deterrent to those who might not want to pay for it. Ian Reeve, BBC Look North, Middlesbrough.
The parents of Bradley Lowry have pledged to continue the work of the foundation in his name, as they were presented with a special award at the BBC Sports Personality of the Year event last night. 6-year-old Bradley from County Durham died after a battle with cancer in July. His parents, Gemma and Carl, accepted the Helen Rollison Award for achievement in the face of adversity on stage at the live show in Liverpool.
We've set up the Bradley Lowry Foundation because we want to continue the good work that he's done. We're going to be giving grants out and we want to build an amazing house for sick children to go and be able to enjoy, have some normality and have some special memories, because all we've got left now is them special memories, but we treasure them every single day.
Now, there are calls for a complete overhaul of business rates to prevent cities like York seeing more empty shops on their high streets. A re-evaluation of the payments earlier this year has seen some small firms facing rocketing bills, and in some cases businesses have been forced to close. Although there's a hardship fund, many councils have still failed to pass on the relief. as Danny Hewson now reports.
Andy Shrimpton's city centre cycle shop has been a labour of love, transforming a run-down structure next to York Station into a thriving business. But despite its success, its days could be numbered. That's because a revaluation of business rates back in the spring resulted in a payment hike of 500%, sums that just don't add up.
Our original rateable value was £9,000 and now it's £54,000.
That is a huge hike. What does that do to your business?
Well, it will close the business. Simple as that. There's no way we can run this business with that kind of overhead. End of.
Revaluations are a regular occurrence and are supposed to make rates fairer, but many feel the system is drastically out of date. Premium high street locations pay more, while online distribution centres, usually out of town, pay less, even if they're making more money.
We just need a level playing field, that's what we need, so that every business, big and small, is paying the same into a central pot as a business tax. Business rates aren't fit for purpose, they're from a different era, from a Victorian era in fact. Let's have a modern tax that allows for the internet, and if you've got a busy website getting loads of hits, you should be paying more, because that's a high street in itself.
The government says it is working on ways to mitigate the impact of the rate changes, including giving councils hundreds of thousands of pounds in rate relief to distribute among those hardest hit. One issue has been the amount of time it's taken some councils, including here in York, to get that money where it's needed.
We've taken a bit longer than we wanted to on some of them, so what we've decided to do is automatically refund all eligible businesses, and that's businesses occupying premises of less than £200,000 rateable value. So within the next few weeks, all will get a refund of the difference between what they paid last year and what they will pay this year, as set by Government Valuation Office Agency.
But some fear that doesn't go far enough.
Unless business rates are addressed, we're going to see more and more businesses going online, people moving out of high value areas and therefore leaving places like York, which has already happened, and therefore relocating. That's going to have a massive impact on the city centre, but also jobs.
Rate relief should be with affected retailers in York before Christmas, a welcome stopgap, but far from a sustainable solution.
Right, tonight's Team Talk with Jeff and Steve coming up shortly. Also, a class act. Joe McElderry goes back to school on Christmas concert day.
And it's looking like a fairly quiet week of weather, generally quite mild with a light breeze and often cloudy. But will it get any colder as we head towards Christmas? I'll have all the details later in the programme.
They're ubiquitous at this time of year, whether you've gone for simple white or a burst of colour. Fairy lights are a popular part of Christmas, but it was actually a famous northeast son who invented them. Joseph Swan, creator of the light bulb, was the first person to design fairy lights, quite literally to be worn by actors playing fairies in a London theatre play. Colin Briggs explains more.
Picture the scene. It's November 1882, Savoy Theatre. The audience is settling down, waiting for the latest show to come from that hot duo, Gilbert and Sullivan. Iolanthe, an everyday story of a fairy who falls in love with a mortal and gets banished. The curtain goes up, and then, wallop, this happens.
Well, I think the audience must have been absolutely astounded. The idea of the electric light bulb was still very new. It had only been really around for a year or two. And the thought of someone actually wearing one, or a group of people actually wearing one, and the lights going down and all of that being revealed, it must have been absolutely amazing.
There'd been nothing like it before. And obviously that's where the term fairy lights came from, originated. It came from that particular production and very quickly spread. I think in America, they were the first ones to actually put the fairy lights, as they were called then, onto Christmas trees. That was a year or two later, and then obviously that spread around the world. So, but in terms of lighting productions, it just moved on so quickly after that.
So put your hands up if you've got a set just like this around the house. I think most of us have. And while you work your way around checking for that one Duff bulb, just remember, it's all down to Swan and a fairy called Iolanthe.
Now, children at a school in South Shields received an early Christmas treat today. They were joined by a special guest as they rehearsed for their annual carol concert. Former pupil and X Factor winner Joe McElderry was a regular performer at Harton Academy back in the day. He dropped in this morning and even took to the stage for an impromptu sing-along. Nisha Joshi was there.
It's Joe McElderry.
Back in his old stomping ground and back to a stage he knows so well.
Last Christmas I gave you my heart, but the very next day you gave it away.
Believe it or not, this performance was done without any rehearsals.
I'll give it to someone special.
It's amazing, you know, obviously I spent so many happy memories here, and it was incredible to be a part of this school. And obviously it was where kind of my first experience of performing kicked off. You know, I'd played Danny Zuko on that stage. So to be back, obviously watching what we're hearing now, it's incredible. Not every school does these kind of things, you know, and it's great for developing people's confidence, but to stand up in front of a room of your friends and peers and everything like that, it's big pressure, you know, and it's a great learning curve for people who want to go into the performing arts industry.
I'll give it to someone special.
It's really exciting because obviously I've never met him before, and it was just an amazing experience.
He went to my performer stage school where I do lots of performing arts and things, and it was just very exciting to see him as well.
When he won the X Factor final, came back with the lovely Cheryl in 2009. He's been a bit of a role model, a bit of an inspiration to our students, and we now have over 106 students there in the actual choir and band, which is fantastic.
Joe keeps in touch with his former X Factor mentor Cheryl.
It's like when you see a friend, you don't speak every day, you don't speak every week, but when you see each other, it's like you've never missed each other kind of thing. So we do keep in contact.
I close my eyes.
From tomorrow, Joe begins a 25-show run playing the title role in Joseph and His Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat at Newcastle's Metro Radio Arena.
To be back in the Northeast in such an iconic venue for 2 weeks every night is huge, you know, and I'm a little bit overwhelmed, but in a good way.
And he's nicely warmed up after today's impromptu performance. Nisha Joshi, BBC Look North, South Shields.
Oh, that was a really nice touch, wasn't it? Right, now it's time for Team Talk with Jeff and Steve.
Thanks, Carol. In a moment, for the first time in 2017, we'll talk about a Sunderland home win, but we'll start with a manager who can't buy a victory right now because Rafa Benitez says he's not had enough money to spend, Steve. Is that fair?
Clearly very evident from the recent run as well. Now just one win the last 13 games. Very tough at the minute for them.
It is, yes. In that run, just 1 point from their last 9 games. And, of course, they've now slipped into the Premier League relegation zone for the first time this season. Beaten away at Arsenal, which is no disgrace, but it's questions are being asked by the fans of Rafa. I know he hasn't had much money to spend, but other clubs haven't as well.
He's tinkering with the system, he's searching, he's tried different things, and I just think the tools he's got at his disposal, people are saying the likes of Burnley, but Burnley are overachieving, and I think this Newcastle squad are capable of slightly better than what they're producing at the minute.
As I say, losing at Arsenal, which is no disgrace, because it's a tough place to go. They hung on in there, but ultimately still got nothing out of it.
It's better second half. You go to Arsenal, you're going to be on the back foot, you're going to have limited possession, but it was a bit like earlier in the season in that they stayed in the game, they kept themselves in with an opportunity, and if you do stay in the game, then as the game goes on, you will get chances, and it was much better second half, and they can take heart from creating those opportunities.
But the likes of Huddersfield and Brighton, who they came up with from the Championship last season, are doing better than Newcastle with a similar sort of squad.
They are, and you can't take that away from what they're doing at the minute, and it would have been so much different. Perez has the best chance of the game here. If he hits the target, then the whole mood changes.
Yes, tricky times for Rafa Benitez though.
Sometimes when you are not winning, you lose a little bit of confidence, but the main thing is it's a young team that has to keep learning, but we have to do it quicker.
Well, how is this going to change? What is going to make a difference to lift you out of the bottom 3?
Yeah, obviously keep working this way, and after, if we can get a result, will be totally different, and then try to go to January and then bring some addition that will give a lift to the rest of the team.
So Rafa thinks one win might change things. Has to come soon, Steve, and some decent games coming up.
I think they're in a mini league at the bottom. Take Manchester City out there, it's going to be very tough. I think it's now or never. If they struggle through those 5 games, they're going to be too far adrift.
Indeed. Tough times ahead over Christmas. Well, to the Stadium of Light, where Christmas came early for those Sunderland fans who'd waited one day short of an entire calendar year to see their team win at home. A major relief. I'll explain that one in a minute. But they're out of the relegation zone, which is important psychologically, isn't it? And it's down to this man.
He's created a bit of momentum with a bit of back end. I think he can get them to climb away. He's been positive right from the start. He said the right things. He's got people on board. He's got them organised. 3 clean sheets in 5. Some good signs, a little bit of luck there, but they're heading the right way.
He's got people like Darren Gibson and Tyus Browning actually playing decent stuff as well. And when this chance didn't go in, it sort of looked like it was going to be one of those days again.
Stunning save from Bettinelli. Vaughan's unlucky. He's working hard, but manager makes brilliant changes.
Yeah,
you know, he's been brave. He did it at Burton, and he's really positive with him.
Well, he's taking off Lewis Grabham as well, leading scorer, but bringing on 2 young lads, it was a real gamble.
You can hear the crowd roaring the youngsters on, but it's good from the youngster as well. He just holds off the defender. Good first touch. Brilliant finish, gives them that massive lift.
It's actually Josh Marger, isn't it? Marger? Is that how we pronounce it?
Marger, yeah.
It's not Major, is it? No. Vital win, though, but as the manager says, it's only the beginning.
It's great today. 3 clean sheets out of 5 is fantastic. But we've got to build on that. We've got to keep getting better, keep working just as hard, if not harder, if we can. And hopefully... all the signs will stay positive.
Well, things are looking up for Chris Coleman. The same can't be said of Gary Monk, the Middlesbrough boss, giving his players a blast down at the New Den, where they were beaten by Millwall. He called them naive and said there was too much schoolboy stuff, and it gave the ball away there, which led to the first goal. And Borough have been doing this all season.
Lots of possession, and even here, you can't play offside if there's no pressure on the ball. That is schoolboy stuff.
Yeah, first goal was bad. The second, defending for the second one, you can understand why he's reacted like that in having a blast at his players. Does that sort of thing work?
Well, they lose possession in a bad area. Saville just drifts in, and then after that, this is what will annoy him. He just barges his way through 3 defenders, and they're doing that too often. You can understand his frustration. They give themselves a mountain to climb at a big, physical, powerful Millwall side. Yes, they get a late consolation from Downing, but they just keep shooting themselves in the foot.
Yes, great goal from Stuart Downing, but as he said, a bit too little, too late for Middlesbrough. Now, we talked a few moments ago about Sunderland's poor home form. Carlisle's isn't anywhere near as bad, but it's still a big problem. Another defeat at Brunton Park. Their home record in 2017, we're just talking league games here, 4 wins out of 24.
Just 2 this season, and they're taking a risk again in their own half, trying to play out, give it away in a bad area. And
Clint Hill, you wouldn't expect that, would you?
It's an uncharacteristic mistake from Hill, but to go 1-0 down, you'd think they'd learn from it. Their defender comes out. If you come out, you have to have an effect on the ball. He leaves a gaping hole. Saying that, it's a big finish, and you can hear the reaction from the crowd. They're fed up with what they're seeing at Brunton Park.
And they're having injury problems as well. I think Jason Kennedy out for the rest of the season. Got one back, but again, a bit too late.
Keith Curl said Merry Christmas, Port Vale, because he gift wrapped them the points.
Yes. Got it absolutely spot on. Well, elsewhere, York City lost their grip on the FA Trophy at the weekend. They were knocked out 2-1 at Kidderminster. Workington bridged a gap of 2 divisions to put out Hartlepool. The Reds' reward is a trip to either Chesham United or Weston-super-Mare in round 2. They're one of 5 teams from our region still in the competition, though Harrogate Town are the only other side definitely in the last 32. And that's all the football news. Steve, thanks again.
Cheers.
Have a good Christmas, and we'll see you
in
the new year.
Everybody at home as well, yeah.
Good man. OK, on to basketball and double disappointment on Tyneside. Having beaten Caledonia Pride in the Women's League on Friday night, Team Northumbria lost to the same opponents yesterday by 66 points to 63, and that was in the semi-final of the WBBL Cup. And there was also a setback for Newcastle Eagles, as Mark Tulip reports.
Fab Flournoy's Eagles had a flying start to the season, but knew that a third league defeat of the BBL campaign would see visitors and fierce rivals Leicester Riders leapfrog them at the top of the table. The Riders had led by 10 after a strong second period, but Jay Sean Page led from the front as the Eagles hunted down their closest rivals, moving ahead by 77 points to 74. Tyler Bernardini immediately responded for Leicester with a 3-pointer to tie the game, before ex-Eagles crowd favourite Andy Thompson, of all people, produced the game-winning basket in the dying moments.
It's going to the Christmas break is going to be very tough, you know, after losing to one of our most rival teams. But, you know, what we have to do is go back, watch some videotapes and see where we can improve.
So the Eagles at the wrong end of a thriller and now playing catch-up. Mark Tulip, BBC Look North.
Right, well, let's catch up with the weather now. We've got Jen here this evening. Jen, how are we looking so far?
It's not been a bad day today, Carol, and it's not looking like a bad week. We've got high pressure in charge, and we've seen some lovely sunsets coming in tonight from our weather watchers. Let's take a look. This first one from Tony in Middlesbrough, some lovely pinky skies here, and pink and blue were the themes of the colours that have been sent in tonight. This one from Neil in Fenton Hill, Northumberland, lovely blue and pink sky there. Similarly too, Shayna in Forest Hall, purples in this photograph, absolutely fantastic. And finally, Jude in Coniston, ending our pictures on a lovely warm yellowy sort of a note. So some fantastic pictures coming in tonight. Now this week we have a generally mild weather pattern, a very quiet week of weather ahead. Quite a light breeze often, and it's going to be quite cloudy and a little bit misty at times as well. Now I did say high pressure is in charge. This is what's happening at the moment. We have this area of high pressure. It's not really going anywhere fast. The only thing that's going to happen through the week is that we're going to see a weather front sinking its way southwards through Wednesday, but little else going on. Now through the night tonight, it is going to be a chilly one. You can see a few tinges of blue on the map showing some frost, and yes, there will be some patchy mist and fog, but it isn't going to be quite as widespread as elsewhere across the country. Temperatures overnight down to around 2 or 3 degrees to take us into Tuesday morning. So for Tuesday we will have a misty, grey, murky sort of a start. There will be a few dense patches of fog, especially over higher ground, but I think on the whole it will be a generally grey, cloudy start to the day. Now through Tuesday afternoon we still will have some mist, especially over the hills, the Cumbrian fells, into the Cheviots as well, but it is going to be mild. Temperatures getting up to 10 degrees Celsius. May feel a little bit cooler than that though under the mist and murk. Now through Tuesday evening and on into Wednesday, again we could see some fog developing, but essentially it's going to be dry for a time. But there's that weather front you can see just sinking its way southwards to come with us for Wednesday morning. The temperatures overnight Tuesday into Wednesday staying up at around 7 to 9 degrees. So Wednesday will start off on a really quite mild note. That weather front, you can see it here, it's going to be sinking its way southwards through Wednesday. That's going to bring a few outbreaks of rain for a time, but then clearer weather behind it. So this is what Wednesday looks like in detail. We start off with some outbreaks of rain, generally quite a cloudy, murky start to the day, but things will start to brighten up a little bit into Wednesday afternoon. We'll see some spells of sunshine, especially towards more northeastern parts of Northumberland, and the temperatures on Wednesday will get up to around 10 or 11 degrees Celsius. 11 is 52 in Fahrenheit. Really not bad for the time of year. Looking towards the end of the week, Thursday is looking like another fairly quiet, cloudy day. Friday, very similar, still staying quite mild. And if you're wondering about Christmas, well, I'll tell you later on in weather for the week ahead.
Oh, thank you very much.
Guessing.
I know. 10 degrees. That's positively balmy after what we've had recently.
It is.
That's it from us this evening then. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.